Briscoe.
Here. I think I'm unmuted. Let me look. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to close the executive session and open the public meeting for the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. I'd like to welcome everybody and do a roll call real quick. Commissioner Briscoe?
Sure.
Commissioner Shepard?
Here.
Commissioner Bell is here. We want to thank everybody for coming and just let you know that we will be having an open session here in just a little bit. We ask that everybody keep that respectable, let everybody have their say and have their opinion without comment from the crowd if we can. Want everybody to feel free to say what they wish without the fear of retribution from the crowd. But before I do that, I'm going to read the advisory committee schedule and let you know that our BIAC committee, the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, is August 14th at 4 p.m. You can join that by Zoom, or you can do it, or you can show up in person at the Aircraft Rescue Firefighting Station at 2005 West Bakerview Road. Again, that's August 14th at 4 p.m. And then we're also going to have the Marine Advisory Committee September 16th. You've got the summer off, September 16th at 6, and that's here in this Harbor Center room, and that's in person only. And now we are going to open it up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak to the commission for any reason, feel free. We'd like to have you limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. And I'm going to start with the list that people have signed up. If anybody else wishes to speak, just wait till we're done with the list and we'll get to you. Anybody online, just raise your hand, make yourself known, and we'll take it from there. Let's start with Ryan Bowman.
Aloha, commissioners, fellow community members. My name is Ryan Bowman. Just wanted to be here today. I'm very excited about the opportunity to hopefully see 2 more commissioners on the board to accelerate communication, as Mr. Bell spoke at that point last time. It helps when you have more brains processing so many things that are going on in an ever-shifting platform like what you have here at the port. Last time we were here, Mr. Survey commented at the end about the airport and the runway being too short to let high-level cargo planes and full gas tank passenger planes take off. I think that is something that would be great to have more communication around. As you wanted to look at a vision for that area, it would be opportunistic for businesses to be able to ship out large cargo and for commercial airlines to bring in people and do international trips with full tanks of gas. I think another great vision for that would be that west area you were talking about. We have a rail spur, a rail line that doesn't go to the airport to increase both cargo capacity for businesses as well as commercial. It would be advantageous to look into engineering some sort of connection for that railway to our airport so that we can be a subsidy for the SeaTac overflow and some of those airlines. They may want to make international depots in Bellingham as opposed to taking up more space in SeaTac. I see quite a lot of opportunities around that for a vision. Also with our port, and I've already talked about energy production and tidal energy. We do have some of that going on in our area in the Salish Sea right now, but Bellingham and as a port, we're not investing in that and looking for those monies that are being provided through World Economic Forum outlets, as well as other international grant organizations. It's a lot of opportunity for money, growing jobs, and being an innovator in a space that's probably gonna be very beneficial to the future of humanity. So, you know, I really think that it would be advantageous to get those 2 extra seats so that we can have more conversations about these type of issues and these type of opportunities that could help lead our port and bring Bellingham to a city of renewed excitement so that we can help lead the way moving forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Dick? Long time no see.
Hey, it's good to be back. I'm Dick Cathell, and I've been a longtime member of the Marina Advisory Committee. In fact, a little over 12 years. Thought it was finally time for me to let go here last year and let some younger folks join that group. But years ago, I was probably the second or third month that I was a member of MAC. One of the things that I had a question about was, why are there only 3 commissioners that are making decisions on a multi-million-dollar budget? And so I started asking and suggesting, and I'm just here to make a strong affirmation for this motion to expand our commissioners to 5 instead of 3. And I congratulate you all for whoever put this on the agenda. And I'll let you know that I'll be out there rooting for this with only one caveat. And maybe we need to reword it just a little bit, because I had to read it through 4 or 5 times before I could really get the total gist of it. But anyway, I am for it, and I look forward to the progress that we'll be moving towards here with our new leadership and potential new members of the commission. Thanks.
Thank you, Dick. Alan?
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Alan McConkey. I'm a Bellingham resident. I'm also the co-founder of Fair Vote Washington. We're a nonpartisan group working on improving our elections, making sure that everyone in our county gets their fair representation on our local elected bodies. So yeah, I am excited about this opportunity to increase the size of the commission, to have it be more representative. I know that being able to have those conversations one-to-one is the main goal, but there's also this secondary argument of being more reflective of the county. I would say, though, as somebody who studies how elections work, I'm not that excited. I don't really think it's going to be that much of an improvement to have 5 over 3 if we continue to use the same election method that we use. So basically, the way you have your elections right now, you have to represent a particular district, you have to live there. But when each seat is voted on by the whole county at large, effectively 51% of the county can elect all the seats. We're seeing that all the other nonpartisan bodies in our county, county council, even like things like PUD and conservation district, they're becoming increasingly polarized in their elections. Like party endorsements count for a lot more and more. It's only a matter of time, unfortunately, before that starts happening to the port, I think, if we continue to use the same voting method. Really, like, if we have 3 or 5, if they're all elected by the same 51% and 49% of the electorate can't get a representative on the board, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I hope you can have good conversations, but we need to get all the different perspectives in the room. Another issue is that if we have 5 seats, we would hope to get a lot of diversity from our county, which is increasingly diverse. If you are some demographic minority, that's 20% of the county, you should be able to get one of those seats. But under this current system, that won't work. Other ports, like Port of Pasco, which uses the same electoral system, is currently being sued under the Washington Voting Rights Act because their Latino population, which is 40% of the county, has never won a seat. It's just a matter of time before Whatcom starts facing those problems too. So how can we actually make this better? I would encourage you to study ranked choice voting. This is something that the charter review process has just been studying. There's been a lot of good materials that they were looking at for the county. A majority of the charter review process voted for a system that would have ranked choice voting for multiple seats at the same time. So you could elect multiple commissioners all in one ranked choice voting election. And the winners would be allocated proportionally according to the proportion of the votes they got. So that would be a solution that would still give us those 5 voices that you want, but they would represent all the different perspectives of the county, whether they are people with different types of jobs or different places in the county they live. I encourage you to study that, and if you can't get it in your proposal tonight, study that for the near future, because I think it's going to be an increasingly important issue for our county. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Bert, welcome back. Bert Weber.
Yeah, can you tell he's excited to see me? Okay, first a question.
I love you like a brother. Come on.
I do. We're okay. So my understanding is that the airport's report on leaded fuel is going to be talked about today. Is that correct?
That's
Okay, good. Is to that end, I'd like to make well, guess I go. I feel so welcome here that I don't even have to say where I live, which is.
We all know.
Okay, check out your records then. All right. I am, though, a member of the advisory committee to the airport, and luckily was able to read what it is you're going to be dealing with this afternoon that I hope Matthew is going to bring forward to you. And there's two things that I'd like to say about that. One is that there's some recent news since that report. That is that the state legislature in Washington State has made leaded fuel illegal as of the 1st of January in 2026. And that their expectation is that all airports will be in compliance within 3 to 8 months of that time. So whatever it is we're going to do here is constrained by the amount of time we have before we have to close down the leaded fuel part of the airport. Okay, there are two comments that I'd like to make about the report that you'll be getting later on. One is that it is dependent, the emphasis of it and the nucleus of it is that there is going to be a fuel that our pilots like available sometime. And that sometime is what has me concerned. If we have to have something in place like 7 to 8 months from now, it is very unlikely that the kind of fuel that the pilots would like to have is going to be available. They've been working on that for over 10 years at least that I've been following, and it's always just around the corner, and it'll be here soon. Well, that soon now has a really short timeline on it. The second thing I'd like you to know about the report you'll be seeing is that there's some things that I think did not get included. Like the first is, who is it that makes the decision about what kind of petroleum fuels are okay to use in your plane? And that's the FAA. And for small planes, they have a fuel standard that is quite clear. It has to have an octane level of 90, and it has to be ethanol-free. No more ethanol into the gas because it's not good for components of the engine. So the question then becomes, is there a petroleum fuel available at 90 octane level and is ethanol-free? And as I mentioned before, you only have to go about a quarter mile from the airport, and that's what you can get. Or at least you could. There are that particular service station is under review right now. It's just a pile of dirt, so I don't know whether it's going to be there in a few months. But if you can't get it there, Coleman Fuel will bring some to you for your use. So the fuel is available. And the question that I keep asking is, why don't we bring that information forward and let it be clear? And the answer you get is, well, our pilots don't want to. That's it. They don't want to. They want to have leaded fuel. And that's okay if they're not a health hazard. But we know that there's atmospheric lead in the vicinity of the airport that's coming from these planes taking off and landing. And that, as we also know, is a toxin. So the airport is exposing the people around the area to a toxin. That's not okay. And I think that somebody who has an option, a fuel option that is FAA approved, should be told of the effect. The reason that our pilots say, well, we just don't trust it. Is there any information that using the unleaded fuel that's available is a risk to navigation? None that I know of. I've asked our airport manager if he knows of any conditions where that fuel has led to problems with safety. Got to realize that, those small planes, no matter what fuel, are going to crash at some time or another. Anybody who follows the papers know that almost weekly there's one example of another across the country of a small plane crashing. We've had two in Whatcom County that I remember, can't remember the exact time, but a plane taking off from Roach Harbor just got up into the air, just there, and then the engine died. And fortunately, at the end of the runway there was a grassy area it could land in, and there weren't any fatalities. There was another one in Waldron Island. A plane crashed, either taking off or landing. I can't remember what. It was a little.
Orcas Island.
Waldron. You should, well, that was the first one. Was in Orcas.
Oh, okay.
I think. No, that was San Juan. Okay. Well, anyway, there was a second one. Again, a nasty crash, but no fatalities. So you got to just accept there is a risk, and just because you don't want to use the fuel is not a good enough reason to not use it. And so I hope that gets addressed when the report comes to you this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, Bert. I believe we had a previous airport director that had a barbecue on your back porch at one point. Is that true? I think we had a previous airport director that had a barbecue on your back porch at one day.
Possibly.
Yeah.
There's some good people that do that job.
Ken Hertz.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to make it very simple. I wholeheartedly support the 5 commissioners. I have talked to many people in the community. I agree with this gentleman. I think the attitude has changed, and I think people are ready to vote again for 5 commissioners. And I appreciate you putting it on the ballot. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you. Todd.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Todd Lagasty here as a private citizen. First of all, I want to apologize for the monkey suit. I'm on a board, and we're interviewing some board candidates after this, so I'm not here to impress you with my snappy dressing. Second of all, I hope that you'll allow me respectfully to address most of my comments to Commissioner Briscoe, because he's been vocalized some of his concerns. So with all due respect, Commissioner Briscoe, I hope you'll take these comments in the way they're intended, which is respectfully. Like you, Commissioner Briscoe, I at one time made my living at sea. I wasn't engaged in the noble pursuit of feeding people. I was a nuclear operator on submarines for a United States Navy. I was part of our strategic deterrence and defense of democracy. But I know, like me, Commissioner Briscoe, that you appreciate democracy. And so that's why I'm up here to ask you respectfully, Commissioner Briscoe, to consider moving forward and putting the 5-commissioner proposal on the ballot, and to not substitute your judgment for that of the voters. I said the same thing to let the voters decide in spring of 2016 to the county council as they were considering the EMS levy. And to her credit, Barbara Brenner admitted that vocalization of letting the voters decide changed her, and the county council went from a 6-1 to a 7-0 vote to put the EMS levy on the ballot in 2016, and that has been a stable funding source for EMS in our county since then. So respectfully, Commissioner Briscoe, that's my ask of you, is to let the voters decide. And then as I look around the room a little bit, I think I may be one of the only other people in the room, if not the only other person, who's been in your shoes, who was on a commission subject to the Open Public Meetings Act with only 3 commissioners. And so I've hit that wall that you all have hit about the quorum requirements and the limitations thereof. So I'm speaking from lived experience when I was an appointed, elected interim commissioner on the Public Utility District for 6 months or so. I know what you're going through. I know the headaches you've had. And I believe that moving to a 5-person commission for the Port of Bellingham is something that would be valuable to our community. And I hope you'll let the voters decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Tip?
Tip Johnson, live on the south side. It come as no surprise that I too support the proposal to add 2 commissioners. When we brought this up a few years ago, we looked at it, and of course the port has 3 districts, the county has 5, And I don't know, it doesn't say specifically in what I read whether you're planning to adopt the county districts, but if you're going to go with districts, that would make sense. The language on the petition that citizens brought up, which was language approved for the ballot by the prosecutor, said to increase from 3 to 5 by the addition of 2 at-large positions. Now, I'm kind of generally a district guy myself, but there is an advantage to these 2 at-large positions, which would be that everyone would have 3 commissioners directly representing them, as compared to just having their 1 district representative. But I think in either case, as we get to 5, there's going to be more robust dialogue among the commission. There's going to be better access to the commission by the public, and I just wanted to bring that up in case you're still wondering about districts and if the at-large is a possibility. Thank you very much for taking this step.
Thank you, and I will just clarify one thing. Every citizen who pays taxes into the Port District is required under state law to be a voter. So all of the positions are elected countywide during the general election. So the primary candidates do come out of the primaries areas, but the county does get a vote on every single one of us that gets elected. All right, that is the rest of my list. Anyone in the audience wish to speak? Sir, come say your name and.
My name is John Borman. I'm a lifelong resident, as is my buddy there, Johnny Baker. We went to Seom High, graduated and went to Seom High in the 60s, and been working in this harbor since before we graduated. His dad was a commercial fisherman. My dad built boats at the old Rang shipyards. Well, I stand in support of expanding the commission because I like the idea of having more access. Although, you know, I got to say, you got back to me within a half hour. I was trying to get a hold of you. So, I mean, you guys are great, but more is better. And so I stand in support of expanding the commission, and I hope that our commissioners, yourselves and the new ones, will often look to the smaller businesses in this community, which built this community. We got a new fish store down here now with Marlene's and young April running the place, and the fishermen, you know, we have the most ocean-going fishing fleet on the West Coast in terms of the far-flung nature of our fishermen. They also come back home to supply their boats, and that fuels our economy. We need more fishing. We need more fishing processing. We lost all that. Mornstein's is gone. You know, CK's gone. Geldol, well, long gone. But maybe it'll come back, and it could come back. And so I'm here in support of. I'm thinking with more commissioners, maybe we'll have even a better chance at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Overachiever. 30 minutes. Please. Joe.
Joe Schmidt, Bellingham. I'm against it. I think it will turn political, especially if there's at-large positions. I would rather see the 3 of you sit there, and I'd sit here and listen to you guys talk to one another and hash out whatever issues there are. I think there's enough people in this community that I'm tied to the shipping terminal. That's where I make a living. And there's a lot of people in this community that just want parks and condos. And I think there's a bigger problem with the port than the commission. It's the staff not being on the same page. You got the environmental department, the real estate department that keeps encroaching on south onto the terminal. There's a lot of other things that need to be looked at. But anyway, I think it just turned political and it'll be a mess.
John?
I'm John Survey, live in Bellingham. Back in 1991, I was involved, my brother was involved too, with Harriet Spinell, our legislator to Olympia. and she saw challenges and problems that the port was having then. And she got this legislation put into the legislature, got it through the Senate. Barney Goltz helped tremendously, and the governor signed it. In '93, we tried a petition. It was winter, no, it didn't work. It's been 30-some years where we've pressed candidates for port commissioner on their stands on this issue and tried very, very hard. Tip Johnson and I have worked at this for over 30 years. This is very nice to stand here today and see it's an inch away from making it to the ballot. The one in 2012, it's a long story, but it was we were tricked. The lawyers are pretty good. So there's three things I want to mention. One is, as I've read this, it stands well. I am very much for 5 districts each having their own representative as you have it in this ballot measure. I think that's the closest thing to a good democracy that we can go, and we should go towards that. I hope the wording that says you will create new districts won't get in your way in the future months when you decide or go to vote to just accept the county council districts as the most obvious thing. What we want is for it to simplify, make it understandable to the citizens and voters of Whatcom County of who they're voting for and what district they live in. They live in one port district, another county district, somebody else, another legislative. Here's a chance, and here's where we simplify it. They're voting for one representative to the county council. They'll also vote for one representative to the Port of Bellingham in the primaries. That's wonderful. That's a huge step forward. I want to make another point. No corporation of the size that the Bellingham is in terms of assets or budgets runs on 3 board members. They all have a minimum of 5. And that's a primary basis in my mind, in my experience. I worked for a Fortune 500. You've got to have more perspectives and more experiences, more diversity on your board as you make important decisions for the community. And lastly, you've got something in there about your numbering yourselves as to after the election, which districts you'll have. I don't think that's going to work, but I assume that later on you'll be able to adjust that as the reality of the districts if you go with the county districts. I know that 2 of you are living in one county council district, and so that will be a challenge down the road. I hope the wording in this does not get in your way, or the lawyers don't tell you later on you can't do that. What you have here, if we pass this, is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for putting it on the ballot.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
Yeah. Craig Cooper, 319 South Forest. I come here seeking all the credit I can get, unlike Todd, with my attire. So doing best as I can do what I'm wearing here. But on a serious note, no, I just want to urge you guys to seriously consider 5, just because of the level of collaboration. Different commissioners bring different ideas, and knowing different people and different agendas to a board to kind of shape and move it. And I think this current commission has done a great job with that, and I think adding to that would really help. So keep it brief. Thanks for considering it.
Not that neither one of you wore a jacket. Anyone else wishing to speak? I will. Please.
I didn't really come intending to speak, but I'm in agreement with everyone that has urged you to accept this and put it on the ballot. And I do want to point out that I don't
we
come
didn't get
to...
a name,
Can
sir.
you state your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry,
and where
Robin
you-
Dexter, 2600 38th Street. I've been to enough port meetings to know that you didn't just hear from anybody today. You've heard from all of your all-stars, the people you know that have commented before and given a lot of their time to the community. So all I want to say is the great congressman from Michigan, John Dingell, once said, the only cure for democracy is more democracy. So I'm in favor of the 5 commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? We'll move to the online. Anyone online wishing to have a comment? All right, we were going to close then the first session. We will, at the end of the meeting, have another session for comment. We like to have one in the beginning and one at the end. So if anybody wishing to anybody who hears something throughout the meeting, if you wish to comment at the end of the meeting, we'll have another public comment period. Now on to the regular portion of our meeting, and we have a new hire that we would need to have an introduction for.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Wiley, Community Outreach Manager here, introducing the newest member of our team for the Marine Life Center. This is Jensen Bruner, and she will be our new education specialist. Jensen has a bachelor's degree in oceanography and a master's in education, so we're really excited for her to kind of take hold of our education programs and help us grow them more.
Thank you.
Welcome to the port.
Just want to say nice to meet you guys and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you loan Todd or your jacket? Because you got it right. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
Comments, Commissioner Shepard.
I don't have any comments, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I don't have any comments, thank you.
And I have no comments either.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard? Yes. Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Okay, moving on to our presentations. Bert, stand by. See the jacket? That's how it's done.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Aviation at the Bellingham International Airport. And it comes no surprise, I'll be presenting about unleaded fuels today. So the introduction, this presentation will be outlining the following. So we'll discuss what progress has been made by the FAA and its partners with the Washington State legislative actions. And we'll discuss the FAA Grant Assurance number 40, the difference between the supplemental type certificate and the American Society of Testing Materials requirements, unleaded fuel progression availability, motor octane and research octane number comparisons, which have to do with the engine and fuel safety and detonation, and then the proposed plan for BLI to transition to unleaded avgas. And with me today, we do have the pleasure to have Jason Hart here for any questions. He's the Director of Operations at our fixed base operator at the airport. So any questions you guys have at the end regarding to our operation with fuel, he'll be here. Okay, so the progress that's been made so far, it's called the EAGLE Initiative, which is the elimination of aviation gas leaded emissions. And it's an initiative that's a joint effort by the FAA and industry stakeholders, which is pointed to eliminate the leaded aviation fuel in piston engine aircraft. It supports the research, certification, and deployment of 100 octane unleaded fuel replacements. And then the FAA's Piston Aviation Fuels Initiative, or PAFI, leads the technical testing of fuel candidates. Meanwhile, the Airport Cooperative Research Program is developing best practices and gathering data to guide airports through this safe transition. Their guidebook is expected later on this year in 2025. The goal of the EAGLE is to eliminate leaded fuels. So their target date is 2030, and they need to do this safely, and there's a whole process to it, which we'll jump into. As for Washington State legislative support, there's been several House bills that's been proposed and put in place. House Bill 1554 was the attempted phase out of leaded fuels. That got a lot of pushback from the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association to where they had to remove that out of that House bill. And then that introduced into House Bill 2393 in 2024, which was passed to encourage the transition of unleaded fuel. So what this meant was they made unleaded fuel more financially attractive and supports FAA's EAGLE initiative. So with the taxes collected, they had the elimination of some taxes that had to do with fuel sales. So they made it a little bit more lucrative for airports to look into providing unleaded fuels. And then lastly, in 2025, this year, House Bill 1084, it's a expansion of these tax exemptions from the previous House Bill 2393, and this is just in hopes to accelerate the advancement of unleaded fuel here in Washington State. From the literature that I've reviewed, there has been no Washington State bill that has been on the floor that's proposing a ban or the phase restriction on 100 low lead fuel.
Matt, do you know if any other states are taking similar initiatives with fuel tax incentives or any other kind of programs like what we're seeing in Washington?
Yes, there's a few of them out there that have the same tax exemptions for the fuel. In addition to that, it is quite costly to get the supplemental type certificate for pilots, and we'll do a dive into that and what that means. But some states have offset the costs of pilots getting that STC requirement by waiving those fees. So they reimburse the pilots or the aircraft owner for the pricing of the STC.
So that, I don't really know the STC. Does that mean pilot to use the 100 octane unleaded pilots have to get a certification or some sort of permit?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to dive into that in the forthcoming slides here, and we'll go over the difference between the ASTM and the supplemental type certificate and what's required. But
So we're learning new acronyms.
Always. Yeah.
Back up a slide, I just want to go through the last point. You said that no airports are moving forward independent of this?
In Washington State? No, there has been. There's a few airports, primarily the private sector for airports. I know there's an airport just on the Southern Columbia River that does offer MoGas. As far as other airports in Washington State, I haven't seen any. None of the public, no. There are airports that are looking into the sustainable aviation fuels, which is a separate fuel than what the unleaded fuel is going to be. So next we'll dive into the FAA Grant Assurance number 40. So what is FAA Grant Assurance 40? Essentially section 770 of the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024. It focuses on the grant assurances that relate to the leaded aviation gasoline at airports. So Grant Assurance 40, what it does, it prevents airports from restricting the sale or self-fueling of 100 low lead F-gas if it was available in 2022 until December 31st, 2030, which is on the same target date as the EAGLE initiative and the FAA's goals of eliminating leaded fuels. However, as airports and public airports, if an airport receives federal entitlements, we are then binded to those grant assurances. So we cannot be in violation of these grant assurances because that will put us in jeopardy of losing our entitlements and facing up to fines of $5,000 per day. Why this matters is that the FAA considers today that 100 low lead is the quote unquote the only fuel available. And when they say the only fuel available, it's the only sustainable fuel that can be put into certain types of aircraft that has the certificate from the American Society of Testing Materials. Now, there are other fuels out there like the Gamma 100 unleaded fuel, which is fully approved by the FAA through a supplemental type certificate and available at airports. But however, you still cannot block access to 100 low lead fuel. So you can still have these types of fuels at airports, but you still have to offer the 100 low lead. Questions regarding grant assurance number 40 before we move on?
So the airport you mentioned on the Columbia would be a private one, so they wouldn't necessarily be getting the FAA support in the same way airports like ours are.
That's correct. Yeah, if they don't receive any federal funding, then they're not tied to the same grant assurances as Bellingham International Airport is.
And are we aware that the non-leaded fuel is safe to use?
That is safe to use. There's a lot of different types of unleaded fuels that we'll dive into in this presentation. And we'll go over those types of unleaded fuels and how those types of fuels are compatible with what types of aircraft. So why is a supplemental type certificate required? If there is no approval or certification through the American Society of Testing Materials, then it's not approved industry-wide. So the American Society of Testing Materials gives a fuel its stamp and says this fuel is safe to use in all aircraft. No aircraft or no fuels right now that is 100 octane level is approved through the ASTM. The supplemental type certificate pathway is approval through the FAA for each aircraft individually. Now, some of these fuels that are approved have a wide range of compatible aircraft that can consume that type of fuel. And then, of course, the Gamma 100 unleaded fuel does differ from 100 low-leaded in formulation, but not performance. These types of fuels cannot be mixed in the same storage tank, but if they're at the same octane level, they can be used in the same aircraft fuel tank. And with a legal requirement, aircraft, for example, if Cessna 152 wants to throw in unleaded 94 octane level, they have to get that supplemental type certificate. So basically that says, the FAA approves this certificate to say this fuel is, compatible with your aircraft, and that you're going to deviate away from what the operating handbook is and what the aircraft has been certificated for. And once you get that approval through the FAA, then you're allowed to use that type of fuel. So what the American Society
Sorry,
tests.
Matt, hold on. Did that answer the question you asked earlier? Yeah.
Okay. What the American Society of Testing Materials brings and how it waives the SEC requirements. The SEC is essentially, it's a approval process that deviates away from the normal process or what's been widely accepted and approved. So when a fuel does get certificated through the American Society of Testing Materials, it does become that standard, and it is then the standard, and it can be widely used. Does that make sense?
Just a background question. Any of the commercial flights, are they using leaded whatsoever?
It depends on the aircraft type. So if you're a piston aircraft, you're using low lead. If you're a turbine engine, you're using Jet A, which is more kerosene based.
Without lead?
Without lead, correct.
So this is primarily for the GA community, not for
correct
the commercial. That's where the problem is. And then do we know, just gut feel, how much of the emissions that are coming out of the Bellingham International Airport are GA versus commercial? I know that's a tough study to.
It is, and we have a significantly more presence of general aviation, but general aviation doesn't just mean piston aircraft. It can also mean turbine aircraft as well. So as far as getting the numbers between piston and turbine, that's, in the general aviation realm, we'd have to quantify that a little bit more.
Maybe another metric would be fuel sold, that's Jet A, versus fuel sold, that's low lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have larger Jet A fuel sales than we do in LET. Jason.
We sell about 4 million gallons of jet fuel a year and about 120,000, 130,000 gallons of gas.
And is it assumed that our...
You got to come to the mic, I'm sorry. So that was... Just repeat those numbers for us again.
The airport currently moves about 4 million gallons of jet fuel a year and about 120,000, 130,000 gallons of avgas. So the difference is pretty big. Sure, some of that jet fuel is traveling further away, so it's not all emitted at the airport. But it's a pretty small portion of the sales at the airport.
Is it given that the commercial are fueling here every stop?
Commercial aircraft typically fuel every stop for the commercial jets at the commercial terminal. Other commercial type operations like air taxis, that the one based here certainly picks up all their avgas here, but other ones don't usually.
Thanks.
So we look into the unleaded fuel progression here. So we have 4 different types of unleaded fuels. And when you see the number at the end of each fuel type, that is the octane number. So Swift 100R, we have unleaded 94, which is also provided by the same company, Swift Fuels. And then we have GAMI, who produces the G100 unleaded fuel as well. MoGas, that's non-ethanol. There's various providers out there. The motor octane number, which is MON, is what you see there. That is the motor octane number of for the octane, so it's 91 or right around then. None of these fuels have lead, of course, because they're all unleaded. And then you can see which ones require a supplemental type certificate. Swift 100R is no. And then unleaded 94 is yes. G100 unleaded is yes. And then MoGas is yes, that's required. The engine compatibility for each one of these fuels is listed there. So all 100 low lead certified aircraft. So between G100 unleaded and Swift 100R, that's 100 octane level, that's compatible with all aircraft. Whereas the unleaded 94 or MoGas, because that's around 91 octane level, is not compatible with all aircraft.
So that one says final approval by 2026. That's 4 years ahead of when Eagle's supposed to be done.
Eagle is expected to be done by 2030.
Yeah, so that first one, Swift 100, is supposed to be done by 26.
So final FAA approval expected by 2026 is the STC.
So would that be usable? Would that
It would be usable as long as the aircraft owners are receiving that supplemental type certificate for their aircraft and ensuring that it gets approved.
So that would still require the STC even after 26.
Correct.
In theory, by 2030, the STC would no longer be required.
Correct. As long as you have it. If you don't have it, you still need to get it, unless these fuels do get certified through the American Society of Testing Materials. Once that step is complete, all those fuels can be used in whatever aircraft.
Okay.
And here we have a map. This is where all of the unleaded aviation fuels in the U.S. are located. You can see the one I was speaking about just in the southern area of Washington State. Primarily, you see in this map, most of the locations are in the Midwest, and we will discuss why that is. But over in the West Coast and Pacific West Side area, aside from California, the unleaded fuel is not very prevalent out this way just yet, primarily because most of the aircraft that are used in the coastal area and mountainous areas require a lot of power. So the octane level that's required for these aircraft to perform at higher altitudes or over mountains needs to be at 100 octane. Whereas in the Midwest, there's a lot of private airports out that way and a lot of agriculture, and the types of aircraft out there are not similar to the same type of aircraft out here and where they fly and how they need to perform. And this slide here kind of goes over the what I was discussing, but again, much of the Midwest is already well positioned for the transition of unleaded aviation fuel, primarily because of those general aviation airports. In those regions serve low to mid compression piston aircraft. Lower the compression is, the lower octane number that is required to run that engine. Any questions with the map? Okay, we're gonna get a little bit more technical here. We're gonna go over the research octane number and then the motor octane number. So this is what defines the octane, okay? So the research octane number is the average of the motor octane number and then the research octane number. How the research octane number is tested is through lighter loads and lower temperatures. So think of it as what type of fuel do you need to put in your vehicle. Let's say you drive a Prius and you need to put, the regular gasoline in there, that gas is being tested with the research octane number, because when your vehicle is under load and you're driving a Prius or whatever car, you're not getting the highest performance out of that vehicle per se. Hence why the higher octane number is put into racing vehicles. When you're using even mid-grade or even premium fuels, those fuels are designated for vehicles that have higher performance. And when you look at the motor octane number, those types of fuels are being tested at a higher heat and higher performance, and that is what aircraft require. So that the aircraft doesn't, when you talk about fuel going into aircraft, it's not what you see at the gas station pump of the octane number. In fact, those octane numbers are just an average. So you can be getting plus or minus 3 on each one of those pumps if it's 94, 91, or 89, et cetera. Whereas the aircraft that you're fueling need to have that, especially if it's turbocharged, need to have that 100 octane level at all times. So how the fuel provides detonation protection is, the 100 low lead offers, they have the motor octane number of, right around 99 to 100, which is excellent for detonation protection. UL 94, again, that's 94 octane. So that's primarily for lower compression engines only. MoGas, the motor octane number between 82 and 88 is not sufficient for most aircraft. And then when we look into the GAMI 100 unleaded and 100R Swift unleaded fuels, those are all right around the 100 octane levels, which is great for all of aircraft. So at the very bottom here, I have a little note here that says, aircraft flying in mountainous or coastal terrain are more likely to need turbocharging, so therefore higher performance or a modified engine or redundancy, all of which require 100 low lead or a high octane replacement like G100, UL, or R100. So that is the FAA's goal, is to get to that 100 octane level, so it's widely available for all aircraft. Whereas when you look at the other octane numbers, such as MoGas or even unleaded 94, those aren't going to be all suitable for every aircraft nationwide. So when you talk about supply chain and where the distribution is going to come from, it's going to be viable. Most airports are waiting for that ASTM approval for those 100 octane level unleaded fuels. Moving into the proposed unleaded avgas transition plan here at BLI. So phase 1, we're in this right now, 2025, 2026. We're closely monitoring and preparing ourselves to be ready. We're going to keep a close eye on which fuels are going to be getting their American Society of Testing Materials certification, such as the GAMI and SWIFT. Of course, then we'll have to track supply chain developments and distribution timeframes, and then coordinate with Washoe Aviation and our FAA partners to identify some funding sources for that. And then, we'll still continue to maintain those 100 low lead fuel tanks and offer that to the general flying public. We can include at the end of this year some type of transition plan into the port's capital, maybe a 5-year outlook rather than just next year, into our either WashDOT's statewide capital improvement program. They do have grants available for sustainable fuels. It's not directly tied to having unleaded fuels, but it could be a pathway that we can seek money for and request funding to make that transition when it becomes readily available. Phase 2 for the infrastructure planning, 26 through 27. Once one of these fuels are certified, we would expect that these fuels would go nationwide. And then we would closely work with our fixed base operator and see what their time frame and timeline is for the supply chain of receiving those types of fuels, and then invest some of these, invest money into additional, like new tanks, cleaning out the old ones, making them suitable for unleaded fuel, but still have to maintain the 100 low lead fuel tank as per Grant Assurance 40. And then phase 3, between 27 and 2029, we can expect to install a dedicated 100 low unleaded tank and dispenser. Of course, we'd still have to maintain that 100 low lead fuel tank as per the FAA, but if anything changes with any reauthorization bill coming from the FAA or changes in an expedited timeline for unleaded fuels, then that would be a great win, and we can move a little bit quicker towards that. And then, of course, phase 4 would be the decommissioning of 100 low lead and moving right towards the unleaded fuel route. Questions?
You ready? Sure. Commissioner Shepard?
Good presentation, very thorough, and I think we all learned some acronyms and some about just how complicated these fuels are and how seriously we take safety and their connection with fuel. I also want to thank Dr. Weber for his continued advocacy for the community. We know lead is not safe. We know there's no safe levels of it, and we clearly want it out of the system. And I think the federal government shares that same perspective. Is it happening today? It's not, but I see a clear pathway for us getting there. And I take a lot of kind of comfort because we recently saw another substantial transition at the airport and with airports across the country with another really dangerous substance. And that's the firefighting foam that had been used for decades and decades. We knew it wasn't healthy. It causes cancer. It pollutes our water. It has forever chemicals. The list goes on and on. It felt like it was never going to leave, but we are now in a point where we're no longer using that. We've eliminated it from our systems at the airport, and that's what we've seen with our other partners throughout the state and throughout the country. And so I know it's taking longer than we want, but I do see that we are going to get there, and it's really helpful, hopefully, to the public, as with us, that we can see these concrete terms of when we're getting there, and 2027 of having those dual fuel options, that it's going to be here before we know it.
I agree.
I guess my follow-up is, should or could we be doing anything else to provide education for our pilots? I don't see education or training or anything else in our planning. Is there another role for us to be just educating our pilots on what's coming and what their options are at this point?
Yes, so the next meeting for the Washington Pilots Association, I believe, is in September, and we intend to address the fuel topic with them. In addition to this, we can have different mechanisms for QR codes we can put around for the transition of unleaded fuels. We can get creative in that type of capacity by offering those types of amenities out there.
Okay. And I guess my last question is, and it may be for FBO, can we source the fuel when it's available? We're kind of in a hole in the market.
I mean, that's certainly the hope. Right now, you can get the G100 UL and the 94 UL down in California pretty easily, but it's not really economically viable to ship it all the way up here. Those drivers are supposed to be short-haul drivers, not long-haul drivers. So as soon as it's available up here, we're going to do everything we can to get something in here. That's something we're definitely interested in, but it needs to be economically viable, and it needs to be safe.
We won't be the only airport asking for it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, it's a very good presentation. The quicker we can move away from leaded fuel, the better. I mean, we all know that. I don't think anybody here is disputing that or has ever disputed it, but as was pointed out, there's steps that have to go through in the process to make sure it's safe for everyone, because the plane falls out of the sky into somebody's house because of the wrong fuel was used, and that creates a problem as well. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think it's moving more quickly than people have anticipated. So that's good. Very good presentation. Thank you.
Mine is similar to Commissioner Shepard's. It is education. I think the more we can tell the community what the dangers are and highlight some of Dr. Weber's research and the health impacts of this, it will become a voluntary. So I think education is a key component to that. So would love to see a little bit more on that. And thank you. We asked you what time it was, and you told us how to build a watch. That was amazing detail. So thank you very much for this presentation. It was wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, our favorite portion of the program. Q2 financial update.
Matt, can I borrow your jacket? You need a jacket to be taken seriously. All right, so Tamara Sobchak, CFO. I have a brief presentation on the Q2 financials tonight, so we'll just hop right into it. We're comparing the first 6 months of last year to the first 6 months of this year, as well as budget tonight. So we'll just dive right into the revenues. The graph on the left was last year, graph on the right is this year. Our revenues have stayed very consistent year over year, and I'll dive into it a little bit more later. The expenses jumped a little bit, mainly for those non-operating costs, and that is mainly due to the I&J waterway cleanup. We spent a lot of money this year cleaning that up. And then diving into the airports, catch up here. Revenues are a little better than budget, but not as high as same time last year. Our employments are about 23% lighter than they were this time last year.
23% lighter?
Mm-hmm. Less.
From last year?
Yes. January through June. Yep.
Why?
Well.
Can you answer that?
Can you answer that?
Because we'd already lost Southwest. Right?
That is the reason. So in comparison to last year, Southwest was still operating. They were getting the Denver route as of right now. So
Southwest caught the tail end of that reporting period?
Correct. But as we look at the stats today, we actually see Allegiant and Alaska increasing their employment stats.
So if you pull Southwest out of that mix, our employments are probably steady or growing?
They're growing.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank goodness, because I mentioned that to you earlier today. That didn't square.
We're all telling the same story. Moving to the marinas. In prior years, this slide has been a little different, but we're doing a lot better job of seasonalizing our budget so that we don't see those ebbs and flows throughout the year. So this really is a true story. Revenues are very close to budget, a little higher than last year, and same as expenses. The shipping terminal, we budgeted very conservatively because of the big project down there, but we're still looking like we're not going to quite meet our revenue projections. We're going to try, but it looks like we'll probably miss them by the end of the year. Cruise terminal, very steady revenues, expenses, a little higher than expected, a little higher than last year. And then real estate. So revenues and expenses always very steady with high occupancy. We're expecting to lose one of our tenants that you're aware of, but it looks like we'll be able to make up those revenues by the end of the year with other increases. So we should be able to hit our projections in this department as well. And then waterfront is, it's the same, revenues, expenses. There's no big growth down there right now. And until we see that, this slide should stay the same. And then public, this is community connections and economic development. Very, very steady, nothing unexpected in these as well. And the exact same story for our overhead departments. And that leads to still a strong balance sheet. 6 months ago, we were at 283 million net assets, and we're at 284 now. And then our investments, Commission's asked to know where we are investing our money. And there's about $8 million in federal and municipal securities, and then the remainder in our local government investment pool, earning over 4% in that LGIP. And then I'm happy to report our stormwater program for the second quarter in a row. Both BLI and BST are in compliance, and sample results were within all permit limits. Our safety report, we did have 2 mishaps this year, 1 injury, 1 illness. They were pretty minor, 4 days total time loss. So still a very safe place to be. And then finally, public records requests. So this time last year, we had, I think, 75 public records requests, and it took about 260 staff hours. This year, we have far less requests, but they're much larger. It's that any and all document, any and all emails that are just really time-consuming to fulfill. But we're meeting all of our legal requirements for those. And I promised brief.
Commissioner Shepard?
Nice job. I don't think I have any questions, but thanks for walking us through. We had an audit recently. Do we want to talk about, do you want to brief us on that?
I sure can.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd like. So we have not had our official exit conference yet. That's coming Monday. But I do have the results of that. So we get 4 audits. One of them is the financial statement audit, and that just says, is our annual report presented fairly? And it is. Our accountability audit, are we doing all the right things? And we are. We get an audit on the passenger facility charges at the airport, and that was all clean as well. And then we get what's called a federal single audit, and they audit, so basically we list all of our federal grant programs. They pick some of the bigger, higher risk ones, and then they do a really deep dive audit. And we, unfortunately, are receiving a finding for that. The federal single audit is very inflexible in their reporting. So if you have an I that's not dotted, you're getting a finding. And that's just because the federal government wants to make sure that their funds are being used appropriately, which is fair. So that's the result.
So we're meeting the targets of these. We just have a small correction.
We do, and as soon as I was notified of the issue, we immediately put a plan in place to put a stop to that.
Well, you and your team do a great job, so
thank you.
So the, Commissioner Briscoe, please.
I have no questions, but good job as always. Thank you.
My question is, the number of requests for information don't necessarily reflect the number of staff hours.
No.
So we only had 48, but it could be more staff hours than the previous 127, correct?
That's exactly what has happened.
And so we're spending more time and more effort on a fewer number of requests.
Correct. Because a request could be, hey, can you send me this one document? Or can you send me the documents for 10 years of all contracts that we've ever had in our entire life? So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Commissioners, I just, one comment on the revenues from the shipping terminal being a little bit below where we had intended to be at this time, that just explain that a little bit, which is we had anticipated Granite being up and running a little bit sooner than they are. We've worked through some of those challenges, and they are getting ready to be running. So we anticipate them being up and running very soon. And then also wood chips that are in one of the warehouses, and there will be a barge this Friday. So we are starting to see activity down there with cargo moving over the dock.
All right, thank you for that. And if you haven't been down there to smell the wood chips in the loading area, it is wonderful. All right, thank you for the presentations, and now we're going to move to our action items, and I'm only going to editorialize this. Those of you that are here for the first item, which is the 3 to 5 commissioner, what you're going to miss is that we are going to approve, or we're going to get a presentation, or we're going to have an action item on putting in a rail spur down at the waterfront and accepting a grant. So if you leave after this one, you're going to miss the rail spur going to the waterfront discussion. You're also going to miss the agricultural center going out in the county. So for those of you that are strictly one-issue people and here for one thing and you leave, I just want you to know that there's a big agenda tonight that is really going to be impactful to the port. So now the first one, action item number 1.
Motion to adopt a resolution providing for the form of ballot proposition and specifying certain other details concerning submission to the qualified voters of the Port District at general election to be held therein on November 4th, 2025, of a proposition whether the number of commissioners of the Port District should be increased from 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners, each assigned to one of 5 newly drawn separate districts.
Commissioner Belt, I have a request. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Ken's mic is not on.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
So, several years ago, we had different meeting times. Our meetings were started at a later time so that the people that were working could get here. And then we changed the times back with the understanding that if we were going to have something, big like this on our agenda that's quite effective to the county overall, that we would, move our meeting time to the time of what it was, 5 or 5:30, and we didn't do that. So what I would ask is, I can't see the audience, but I know there were some people that were working that wanted to come and give testimony. I would ask that we have an availability of public comment at this point in time, because their public comment isn't going to be heard till the end on something that we're going to make a decision on before they have a chance to comment. So I don't know where you guys are with or where you're at on that, but I think we should at least give another public comment before this, seeing as how the meeting started before people were off work. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Briscoe, I think that's a perfectly reasonable, I'm going to ask that Holly go through her presentation, and then as soon as she's done with that presentation, it'll be more than likely later in the day and give other people an opportunity if they want to comment. So we'll do that as soon as the presentation is completed, if that's okay with you.
Before the vote?
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Holly Stafford, CSD, Attorneys at Law, Ports Legal Counsel, also wearing a jacket. So what you have before you today is Resolution 1422. I'm here just to tee it up, to give you a little bit of background, and then to turn the floor back over to the commissioners so that you can have a robust discussion about the path forward. So as you know, this is one of those times when I need to say I don't get paid by the word. I apologize for the wordiness of the resolution title, but we tried to put a bunch of detail in there so that it was clear what this was and what this was not going to do if it does get adopted. So it is a ballot proposition essentially to ask the voters of Whatcom County whether the commission should expand from 3 to 5 members, as a number of comments tonight mentioned. Adoption of this resolution today would place this on the November 2025 ballot for the voters to decide. And if passed by the voters, there would be a separate election at a later date to have those 2 new commissioners elected. It would be 2 separate elections. There's a little bit of detail on this slide that I didn't quite touch on, and this is kind of more nerdy detail about how things actually work from a procedural standpoint. You would have the highest number of voters would get a 3-year term, and the lower number of voters would have only a 1-year term. Then we are going forward in the odd-numbered election years for 4-year terms, kind of going forward. And what I have here is a visual representation. So we're calling this track 2 because when we started to look at this issue, we had a track 1 that has now expired. We're past that timeline. So this is what track 2 looks like. These different colored boxes represent different stages in the process. So in order to aim for the November 4th, 2025 special port/county general election, to be before the voters for the actual increase, then the deadline is essentially this meeting or so to submit the resolution to the auditor. If it is adopted on November 4th, 2025, then it would, there are other interim steps the port would need to take, and then the election would be in November of 2026. Below that those color-coded boxes, you have the essentially the election cycles. And so this is to show people if this track 2
were to occur, then this is what the different election cycles would look like. So right now we have position 1 and position 2 up for election in 2025. If it's adopted, you would have the 2 new commissioners up for election in 2026. Then you can see in 2027, the lowest vote getter, and you still would have Commission District 3 up for election. So at no point do you have any more than 3, which would happen in 2029. And then after this, we get on a regular 4-year schedule for each of those. What I think is important here is that there is, this is entirely optional for the commission. If the commission chooses not to put this forward to the voters, that's the commission's choice. Or if the commission chooses not to do so today, there are other possible timelines. And so these color-coded boxes show those additional tracks. We've got track 3 and track 4, again, with different times of when the resolution would be adopted to be put on the ballot. So you can see for track 3, which would be the next available timeline, you would have a special election on April 28th, 2026. And then the commissioners would be voted in November of 2026. So you have the same date for the election of the commissioners, but a different date for the ballot proposition. Track 4 is pushing it out essentially one more year. So you would have July 2026, we'd be having this conversation. November 3rd, 2026 would be the ballot resolution, and then November 2027 would be the election of the commissioners. So that is really all I have for you, other than to kind of line up these election cycles for the other timelines as well. As you can see, at no point do you have more than 3 commissioners up for election. That was one of the issues when we were looking at track 1. That was a concern, is you would have had at least one cycle. We'd had one cycle with 4 positions up for election, which could have created some chaos, which I believe is part of the decision to not put that forward until now. So I'm happy to answer any process questions that you might have, procedural questions, anything about the law that you have, and otherwise I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Holly. And then at the request of Commissioner Briscoe, if there's public comment on this at any given point, would you please raise your hand if you're online, or if you're in the audience and wish to speak, please do. Please.
Hello, commissioners, staff, neighbors. My name's Carly James. I'm a small business owner on the Port of Bellingham's downtown waterfront, and I am also currently a candidate for Port Commissioner. I am in the process of campaigning right now, and so I just wanted to bring a couple of issues. I'm out talking to folks, hundreds and hundreds of people in our community. The feedback that I'm receiving overwhelmingly is in favor of expanding the commission to 5 seats. So I wanted to share that with you. I also wanted to bring up my experience as a candidate. Early on, I met with former executive director Rob Fix, and wanting to learn about what a port commissioner does, what the Port of Bellingham does, which again is another thing that comes up when I'm out talking to folks in our community, that there really is sort of a barrier of understanding of what the work that you're doing. So I sort of stepped into this and I asked Rob, where's the job description for port commissioner? Where's your SOPs for how this business is run, so that someone like me who wants to step in, be engaged, be involved, how do we learn? And I was told, that's not really a thing, and you learn as you go. And so I just want to bring up, there's been so many valuable insights as far as the work that you're doing in the decision-making process, more voices, how important that would be. I want to also bring up the concept of mentorship and how important it is for new commissioners joining the body to have access to their colleagues and people who have experience being here to be able to communicate and learn from one another. And I think that would be tremendously valuable to the decision-making process and to bringing more people onto the commission. And for folks that feel concerned about a hyper-partisan state and the commission becoming political, I would encourage you to look at the work of Fair Vote Washington and look at what ranked choice voting does for bringing more representation to our voting outcomes. So thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, that being said, Commissioner Shepard?
Holly, I just have a procedural question. I think the motion is well written. The only question I keep looking at is can we include that it is going to model the 5 districts that the county council already uses? I know we have to go through a redistricting process, but can we put that in at this point?
I would recommend against putting that in there. And the reason for that is we are assuming that the county council districts do comply with the Washington State Fair Voting Rights Act, but we don't know that. And so if this resolution goes on the ballot and is adopted, part of the redistricting process would be for the port to hire a consultant to take a look at that. So my suspicion is it's going to most likely align with the county council districts, but the port needs to do its homework to make sure that it's not just following another governing body's lead and is in fact following the law.
Okay. Commissioner Bell, we do have a guest online who has their hand up. Would you be willing to have them speak?
I would. We want everyone heard on this, so please.
Hannah,
Sorry
go ahead.
Hannah Ordos?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I was having trouble raising my hand before that last comment and public comment was closed. But it brings to the question that Commissioner Shepard just announced regarding the language. If the language cannot be changed to reference the 5 districts that are already existing, which should be in compliance with what the state recommends, is that a fiscal note be added to that? Because I think as someone who will be voting on this, I would be concerned about the cost implication. I think the cost to cover a change like this is already important enough, but if there's going to be additional cost in the redistricting that could align differently with what we already have, I think it adds confusion also to the process. So I would just ask a fiscal note be added. I know that there's already some expenses that are already in the report, but that be added as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Tracy? Okay.
Okay. Any more, Mr. Commissioner?
That's my only question for Holly at this time.
All right. Commissioner Briscoe, did you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I'd just like you to clarify one more time how this works, that who can talk to who when we go to 5 commissioners, because I want people to understand that the commission, you can't go from commissioner to commissioner and talk to each other about stuff so would you clarify that again, please?
Absolutely. So one of the factors that proponents of going from 3 to 5 cite is the ability of commissioners to have conversations with one another outside of an open public meeting. If you have a commission of 5, 3 represents a quorum, so you could only have 2 commissioners having a conversation. You would not be able to have a serial meeting in which one commissioner has, say, Commissioner 1 has a conversation with number 2, and then one also has the same conversation about the same topic with number 3, and so on and so forth. That's not allowed, even if you do have 5 commissioners. So I think the last meeting I referred to it as having a phone a friend, where it would just be 2 commissioners having a conversation, or perhaps 2 others, but you don't have a series of conversations about the same topic because that's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Thank you, Holly.
Welcome.
That's all the questions I have for Holly.
Okay. All right, so any discussion with us? Commissioner Briscoe, would you like to address the commission?
Yeah, I would. I'd like my fellow commissioners to, I'm out on the, I mean, I haven't made up my mind one way or the other yet. So I'd like to hear the reasoning why the commission thinks we should put this forward at this point in time. You know, Commissioner Bell or Commissioner Shepard, either one can let me know that.
Sure. I'd be happy to start off. You know, there's definitely a question out there that comes up, you know, if this is of interest to the community, which the representative sample that we've heard from today clearly is of a topic of interest, why doesn't the community bring it up themselves? Why does the community not go through the process of creating a citizens initiative to put this on the ballot themselves? There's two pathways. We can put it on the ballot. The citizens can put it on the ballot. For me, I believe that, you know, my support for this initiative is because people have consistently asked me to do so. And so I feel like I'm being responsive to the public who elected me and who has consistently asked me to put this on the ballot. I know we hear from a lot of people. I've certainly heard from people who are opposed to this idea, but it is an overwhelming number of people who have spoken with me, emailed me, talked to me at their front door, who are in favor of this. My second kind of rationale is just my own experience in this office and seeing that I believe it is a more efficient, transparent, and effective form of governance to move to a system where there is greater representation. So those are really my two interests. I think it increases the representation that we have throughout the community. As Carly mentioned, doorbelling is an experience of knocking on people's door and saying you're running for Port Commission, and then getting this kind of uncomfortable blank look on someone's face of, oh, I think I should know what that is, but I don't. Now I'm uncomfortable and we're at the door together. That is my experience doorbelling in the community as well. Moving to 5 doesn't magically solve the need for the public to have good education about what the port does. But I think it increases the representation throughout the community, which increases that ability for the public to know that person who represents them, have the ability to connect with them on a regular basis, and have their input heard. The ability for 2 commissioners to talk at one time is something that I see as an asset to good governance. And then I think it also just increases, whenever we increase the knowledge of what the commission does and what the port does, I think it does aid in our ability to be transparent to the public about our role in the community. Finally, I believe that it concentrates power and decision-making in those elected members of this organization. And a 3-commissioner board has a natural process of concentrating power in an unelected member, which is the executive position. And so I believe from a transparency perspective, it also increases the direct connection that the public, through their elected representatives, have in decision-making. So those are my interests that I've kind of observed from both hearing from the public and my own lived experience in this office.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to probably say some of the same things, only in a different way, as I'm prone to do. I think, Commissioner Briscoe, the structure of a 3-commission and the inability to communicate to one another directly, I can't tell you how many times it's been like being on an island where you legally cannot speak to anyone other than the executive director or the staff. And if you're not aligned with the executive director or the staff, then your avenue for communicating to other commissioners that something needs to change is limited. And you literally find yourself finding ways to communicate to a commissioner without going to the commissioner. because you can't go through the executive director or the staff, which is surreptitious, which is hard, and no one ever communicates your thoughts, your ideas, your perceptions the way you can. So having the ability to do that is important. The other thing is, when we have had discussions, how you're going to vote can't be discussed with you directly, or how you perceive an issue can't be discussed directly currently. It comes through a third party, so I'm not sure what filter is being used, and that's troublesome. I would rather hear some things directly. And then if there is a point of conflict, it's much easier to resolve if I can just sit you down and say, here's the issue, let's work this out. But to one of the points that Commissioner Shepard made, we delegated the authority with our delegation of authority to the executive director, and that would continue, which puts essentially the running of the port in the hands of an unelected official. And since we all work for a living, the information we get about the port is what we receive from either staff or the executive director. And it's not often the same information that is passed from you or to me. And I believe that there is a more consistent communication pattern if we can broaden the base. And I do think that, especially in times of conflict, I don't think anybody would be here arguing this in a time of good times, but it's only when you have bad times that you need an outlet for that kind of discussion. And I do believe those are important to have. Currently, I just want to go to the issue that has been raised, and that is that this will be highly polarized or highly politicized. Currently, my learned opponent could easily win this election with a 51% vote, and then the commission would change in its tenure. It's going to be the same thing with 5. The county votes for all commission seats countywide. There is no difference in the makeup of the voting population with 3 or 5. It could easily overturn my seat. Do you have an opponent?
Not when I checked.
That's 2 strikes against you tonight. So you're getting the same voting population base, you're just getting different bodies from different districts. I also believe that the interest of the downtown South Hill District 1 neighborhood, taking the county council districts, are very different from the District 2 interests. And I think those interests that go up into the airport are very different from District 3, which goes up into Ferndale and along that stretch, which are very different from the ones that are north of there and the ones that are in Acme. And I think having representation from all of those different areas, or at least somebody that comes from that world, to sit here, we're more likely under this scenario. If you look at the makeup of this, 2 of us are from the Bellingham area. We're guaranteed to get somebody under the 5-district structure. We're guaranteed to get somebody out of the Linden, Everson, Nooksack region. We're guaranteed to get somebody from a different region of the population, because the current way the districts are structured, we go all the way from the city of Bellingham up the Guide Meridian and east, and that happens to be my district. And I think having that representative body coming from different areas will mean that we'll get a broader base. I also would like to Joe's point. Joe, just so you know, I'm listening. You have brought up many times that you think the staff may be on a different page. And like I said, we're not in charge of staff. We're commissioners, we're at a policy level. And so having more commissioners involved gives us more of an outlet. And I think it puts the responsibility back on the commission to start making policy decisions, not having agendas drafted by staff or drafted by the executive director. We literally set policy. I think over the last year, I think you've seen a change in the way I've addressed policy, and specifically with the idea that we need to have a vision at the airport, we need to have a vision on the waterfront, that it needs to be a more comprehensive. Those are the kind of things that would be interesting to talk about with someone else. And I think since we do set the policy, it's incumbent upon us to have a few more conversations. I also say that from a commission structure standpoint, it's interesting to talk about how we elect the chair. Currently, we have a rotation. We do it every 3 years. You move to a 5-commission district, you would more than likely have a structure where we talk about who's got a vision, who's going to move a policy one direction, and you elect your chair, and the chair is the one responsible for the agenda. So it puts the agenda back into the commission's hands, who are the ones responsible to the public and the ones making those decisions. And the chair responsibility then becomes something where we look to each other and say, what do you want to do this year? And we can then elect the chair based on the qualifications and the vision that we see put in front of us. And I think that's a pretty important part of the way this goes. So those are the reasons. I think some of those were duplicative of what Commissioner Shepard said, but those are my reasons. Commissioner Briscoe.
Okay. So, I've always said it's up to the people, and I still believe that. The question in my mind is this the right time for the commission to bring this forward? We're under monetary constraints. We can't even find enough money to tear down a warehouse that needs to come down, but yet we're willing to, spend probably close to $500,000 on this whole project by the time it's done, and then add another couple $100,000 a year with the commission. You're going to have to add more staff to take care of 5 commissioners. Your executive director meets with a commissioner once a week. So there's 5 days a week that your executive director is going to be meeting with the commission. I think there's a lot of things that haven't been vetted yet that need to be talked about, and I'm not opposed to 5 commissioners if that's what the people want to do. I haven't heard but from a handful of people tonight. I don't know that we maybe put the word out as well as we should have, or even if we even tried to put the word out that this was going to be talked about tonight and the people needed to comment on it. I just kind of feel like we did with the executive director thing, that we're just kind of rushing headlong into stuff here without really, taking a breath and a pause, so to speak, and discussing it. This is the first time that have discussed it with my fellow commissioners, that I've got answers that I wanted to hear. So, I'd like to digest stuff. And, I think there's going to be, whether people believe it or not, there will be more of a nonpartisan office that you see right now, a nonpartisan commission you see working at the Port of Bellingham presently. I think if this goes through, it'll probably be the last time you'll see the nonpartisanship, and I truly believe that. We've seen it with the county council and city council, and I don't think anybody can refute that. It gets party-sided, so to speak. So I hesitate to spend the kind of money we're talking about spending at this point in time when we're trying to figure out how to make things happen, because it's definitely going to cause probably property tax increases to support things. We don't have enough money now to do the things we need to do, but we're willing to spend money just to find something out. And with 280,000 people in this county, I think I would have heard more outcry about needing 5 commissioners than I have. I've heard very little. And like I said, I'm not opposed to that. And I'm not trying to stop that from happening. But I certainly would like to do this in a little different manner than we're doing it, with a little bit more input, a little bit more assurance that we're actually, as the commission, doing the right thing by bringing this forward to the ballot and spending the taxpayers' money. I guess that's all I have to say.
Mr. Shepard.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that we've elicited community input several times. We had a forum several months ago. We've talked about it multiple times. I feel like I've heard from the public quite thoroughly on the issue. And I do hear the concerns about budget constraint. I know that adding 2 more commissioners does have an absorption of time and some budget impact on the organization. Most of that is not from the salary portion of what is allocated, but there of course are impacts. There are important things for us to weigh and for the voters to weigh. I still believe that we should move forward at this time with the vote.
And I'm going to address a couple of things, and I think I even had this conversation with my opponent at one point, and that is that this really is a partisan job now. Any one of us that have run have had to have the endorsement of one of the political parties in order to garner enough votes to get anywhere. Unfortunately, that's the state of politics today. So there is already a partisanship. It's just, do you have candidates that can break through that partisanship and represent the nonpartisan viewpoints that we would like to see on the port. And I will also say that I have seen this presented and discussed at numerous meetings. It's been at the small cities more than once. It's been at the Whatcom County Business and Commerce Committee just recently. We've had numerous public discussions about it here openly at the podium. And there has been a tremendous amount of time between the time this was first presented and now. And we even put out the warning the last time we discussed this, that this was going to be a 30-day open period for people to comment. So I think there's been plenty of time, and I think anyone who would want to comment would also. I would also say it's incumbent upon us to do what we think is the right thing, regardless of politics. I think I was joking earlier that I can't tell you how many friends I've lost since being a port commissioner. And so I'm no stranger to making those kind of tough decisions, but I think this is one that needs to be made. To your point on the budget, as a commissioner, I think at some level, in all honesty, we've abrogated our role to make decisions based on what's a priority for the port. Past budget sessions have included, and I've already discussed this with staff, have included budgets that are presented to us by staff and by the executive director. But as the elected representatives, we have never really sat down and said, look, we've got a limited amount of money. What are the top 3 things that we want to accomplish this year? And let's go get them done. And we continue to fund a lot of things, and a lot of things continue to take a lot of time. But we need to, as a commission, start to look at budgetary constraints as being something where we have to maybe forego, not even maybe. It's time for us to forego some things that aren't as high a priority and focus on the things where the port can have an impact, and set a metric for the commission to say, these are the metrics that we think are important: jobs, safety, and then gear our budget based on the metrics that we as a commission, elected representatives, set, and do that from a policy standpoint, which I think we have never really done as we've looked at the budget, and I would like to see us change that this budget cycle. You'll see me harp on that a little bit so that we can at least paint, as the policy makers, what our vision is for the priorities of the port and where the money should go. So I think that budget constraint is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing because it will force us to have some discussions that we would not normally have had. So for that reason, I don't see the problem with the rest. I also think when you talk about Tiffany's time or the executive director's time, the executive director can now sit down with 2 people. Doesn't have to sit down with each one of us individually. So there is that ability to have the executive director talk to 2. So it's not a 5 commission every day thing. it is one of those things that can be done in multiples. So it kind of takes a little bit of the sting off of that. So that's just my response. Trust me, Commissioner Briscoe, I've given this a ton of thought.
Well, one thing I would, say that you're saying we don't prioritize in our budget retreats. We do. We've always have. There's a priority list. And we've always talked about the priorities, Ken. So I don't think that it's fair for you to say that hasn't gone that way, because it always has. And we've tried to prioritize what was very important for the port to get done, and there's nothing that is least important. It's just, can we or can't we do it? And I'm just saying that we've got a long list in the hundreds of millions that we can't get to, and we're, pitching money at something that I'm not entirely sure we need. And I'm not entirely sure we don't need it. I really don't know at this point. I do know we have other ports coming to us asking us how we're doing the things we do and make things happen, which leads me to believe that I'm not really sure that what we're trying to do here is really all that important at this time, other than people think they need to talk to each other. And the comment about two commissioners talking to the executive director at once, yeah, you could do that, but I don't know if I want to sit in a room with a fellow commissioner and discuss things with the executive director and on views and so on and so forth. So that may work and it may not work. I don't know. But it still bothers me that we're going to spend that much money on, we're guessing this is what, needs to be done. And I'm going to feel really stupid if it gets voted down. So, all right, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you for putting that thought into that, Commissioner Briscoe. Anything more? Action item on the table.
Motion to adopt a resolution providing for the form of ballot proposition and specifying certain other details concerning submission to the qualified voters of the Port District at a general election to be held therein on November 4th, 2025, of a proposition whether the number of commissioners of the Port District should be increased from 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners, each assigned to one of 5 newly drawn separate districts.
Mr. Shepherd?
I'm a yes.
Mr. Briscoe, I'll save you for last. Commissioner Bell is a yes. Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, well, Commissioner Briscoe's in a hard spot here, between the rock and a hard spot, proverbially, because it's the people's choice, and I'm more voting on whether it's our choice to do what we're doing. And I have to vote no because I don't think we should be doing what we're doing at this time. I'm not voting no because I don't think the people should be voting on it. I think the people should bring it forward, and I think it should be theirs to do, and I've always said that, and I will maintain that, so my vote is no.
Thank you. Motion passes. So before you all exit the room, just know that we have a rail spur and we have an experimental farm, Boxberry Farm, going in for the port. So if you leave early, you're going to miss 2 very good highlights at the port. Okay. Number 2.
Motion authorizing the interim executive director to enter into a grant agreement with US DOT and MARAD, providing $17,931,000 for for the Bellingham Shipping Terminal Rail Connection Project, awarded under RAISE fiscal year 2024.
Matt.
Hello, Commissioners. Excuse me. Matthew Kress, Business Development Manager here at the Port. I'm here to update you on the rail grant that we were awarded by MARAD last year in 2024. This project is just part of the Bellingham Shipping Terminal Modernization Project, where we're rebuilding a vital West Coast shipping hub. The rail project, it will restore resiliency to the terminal and not make it regionally dependent on cargo and industrial activity. To recap, the Port was awarded $17.9 million in FY24 RAISE grant funding. This will connect Bellingham to the rail freight network in the United States and Canada. We'll also reduce carbon emissions in truck traffic in Whatcom County. And this makes roads safer for families and pedestrians and reduces the cost of road repair. The port issued an RFP in June of this year, so last month, and we received 6 responses to work on the project, and over the course of the next few weeks, we will reduce that down to 3 vendors that will be interviewed, and we will select the partner we will have to help with this project. The respondents were to show strong rail knowledge and a good working relationship with BNSF, and to be very knowledgeable in environmental and permitting policies. This is a fully funded federal grant, so we're not here to ask you for any funds today. We're just here to remind you that we have environmental cleanup to do in the log pond and the cargo support area in advance of the rail project, and we're going to start that sometime in 2026 and complete it hopefully by mid to end of 2026. And then right behind that, we'll come in and start the rail project. The port will coordinate with the environmental team, and so we're ready to go right after the remediation is completed. And so MARAD has informed us that the final grant agreement is with their lawyers and pending approval in the next 1 or 2 weeks. And so we're just coming to you today to authorize the interim executive director, Tiffany DeSimone, to sign that agreement when we receive it from MARAD. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Matt, there's a requirement to sign that grant agreement within 10 days, I believe, once we receive it. And so since we don't have another meeting until August, that's why we're coming to you asking for that.
Great. Commissioner Briscoe, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions for Matt. I'm fully aware of what's going on there. It's going to be a good deal for the port.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, I also agree this is going to probably be the most significant upgrade we have for our capacity and the diversity of cargo we can see at the shipping terminal. We're doing the other needed work to upgrade the strength of the pier and to get the depth of water needed. So between these 3 things, we are doing what we can to make this facility as attractive as possible for diverse cargo and to put both revenue flowing into our community and people to work. My question is, as every time I look at the map, I see this is needed, it's important, it's taken a chunk out of our laydown space that we currently have. And I think we need to be thinking really critically about the area to the north of the existing footprint of the shipping terminal for expansion of warehouse space or laydown space to support the operations that we expect to come here in the future. And so I just want us to be thinking really hard about how much space we need at the terminal for being able to attract and retain the type of operations we hope to do. We're still in the Field of Dreams phase here. We're building it, we're paying for it, we're hoping it comes. And we want to make sure that we have the space needed. This is going to eat up some footprint. So how do we replace what is going to be eaten up by this either on the east side of the tracks or the east side of Cornwall or on the northern boundaries of where our existing shipping terminal perimeter is. So that's something I want us to be thinking about as we move forward.
I agree.
I'm going to echo that. Having had a few discussions now about the rail, what I'm finding is that we have a tremendous amount of desire to use our shipping terminal. And as I talk about the Rotainer and I talk about the rail service, the mayor of Sumas today cornered me and said, look, I'm a broker. I can use this thing all day long and I'll fill it up. So I echo a little bit of this. We need to be ready for the impacts because I think we underestimate the amount of demand that's going to generate. We've got pretty conservative estimates on it now, but we should be prepared just based on the conversations I've had. I went through Juneau a couple of weeks ago and looked at the laydown area that they've got for their containers, and it's significant. And the level of stacking, our ability to stack is going to be needed to be increased, I think. That was really inarticulate. But you get the point. I think we need more space, and I would love to have you do a presentation down the road that tells us what our options are as we grow this and as we start to see jobs created from this. But I think we need to get that rail in as quickly as we can.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, I support this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bell, I have one more thing.
Sir.
Clarification on you guys' parts. We're talking about the light industrial area. That's a property we're considering moving to, possibly, including, however you want to put it.
Including, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And that brings into play what we've talked about earlier on of moving the maintenance area away from where it's at to give us that room.
Yes.
Another good conversation.
Yep.
Another
Continuing.
great.
Okay.
I would love to have that in depth because it's a working waterfront and we need to make sure that we've got the entire area working to its highest possible value.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted clarity on what you guys were thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, relocation of the terminal entrance, moving the maintenance facility, all of that stuff is on the table, and that's part of the design and investigation process we're starting this year. MARAD gave us pre-funding approval, so that's why we're starting before the grant agreement is even signed. They've given us $750,000 to spend to start design and engineering early, so we can do all this community outreach, talk to other stakeholders, including the city. There's a lot of activity in that area and 2 crossings at grade, so there's a lot of work we have to do in order to get the maximum we can out of a very congested area.
Would the conversation include the SoFab building?
It can.
I expect it will.
It should.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And I think just my other comment is, kudos on getting a huge amount of grant funding, and I recognize how much effort it takes, but we want to keep our eyes on other available funds that are going to make the federal government's investment even more productive. And those other grant funds or sources of income to help us acquire additional property or to make higher and better use of the existing properties we have are something we just need to keep our eye on. And I think making sure our federal lobbyists knows that interest is going to be helpful for us moving forward as well.
Thanks for that feedback, and I'm not sure how aware the commission is that we have hired a grant person in-house, and so she is tracking all of these things and working closely with Mike Hogan for the legislative piece.
I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
we're happy to have that person.
Elise is her name. We're happy to have her.
Track down these resources, and we want to bring the funds to make sure this is as successful as possible, and it's going to take some initial startup money still, because eventually there will be enough revenue coming in that we'll be able to have more flexible decision making on how we optimize the property. We're not at that point, and so we're just at a pinch for optimizing the property without the revenue to support it. So it puts us particularly encumbered on grants and dipping into our own port resources, and we've been willing to do both, and that's a testament to our belief in that facility and its potential. It would be helpful if there was revenue to support it.
Working on it.
I was just going to say, we're working on it.
I'll follow that up by saying we don't have zoning abilities. We don't have the same legislative authorities that the county and the cities do. Our job is to create work, and the only tools we have in our toolbox lie along that waterfront, are the best tools that we have, not the only tools. The best tools we have lie, and the most productive and highest paying jobs lie along that waterfront. And so we should be singularly focused on making sure that's successful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Motion authorizing the interim executive director to enter into a grant agreement with USDOT and MARAD, providing $17,931,000 for the Bellingham Shipping Terminal Rail Connection Project, awarded under RAISE fiscal year 2024.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard? Yes. Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Final action item?
Motion to authorize interim executive director to execute a new lease in substantially the same format as the attached proposed lease between the Port of Bellingham and Wacom Food and Farming Station for approximately 58.81 acres of land and improvement at 6209 Northwest Drive, Ferndale.
Elliot?
Yeah, hi, I'm Elliot Smith. I'm the real estate director here at the port. I am quite happy to present a real estate deal that is quite representative of part of our community that often doesn't get discussion here. So I brought with me Annika Borkman from the real estate team also. She has put in a tremendous amount of work helping to prepare this deal, literally out in the fields in this case. Tyler Schroeder has also worked very hard on making the mechanics of this work in the end in what has been quite complicated. And also the Whatcom Food and Farming Station is represented by WFFS, and we have two members of them here today. And I just want to have them stand up. We have Dakota Stronach, whose name I've almost certainly mispronounced, and Blake DeVelda, who is also here as well, representing the group that we are proposing to sign a lease with, should the commissioners wish to go ahead. Thanks for coming, by the way. They're also here to answer questions if need be after this. The motion is to approve a renewal and modification of lease between the Port of Bellingham. Excuse me, I have the wrong document in front of me. Apologies. The motion is to authorize the interim executive director to execute a new lease in substantially the same format as the attached proposed lease between the Port of Bellingham and Whatcom Food and Farming Station for approximately 58.81 acres of land and improvements at 6209 Northwest Drive in Ferndale. Many of you will know that as the Box Family Farm and its current ownership. The slides we have here will talk a little bit about how that deal is structured. Again, 58 acres of land and improvements, and it is property I would call in very good condition in the farming community. The lease term for the food and farming station would be for 25 years and 3 months, a 3 months initial term, and then 20 years, with 1 5-year renewal possible. The proposed commencement date is October 1st, 2025, and that corresponds with the closing date that has been arranged with Tyler and Annika's hard work of October 1st, 2025 as well. The rent of $55,000 a year annually is in this lease adjusted by CPI annually, but that rent has one objective, and that is to cover all the costs to the Port of Bellingham, and it is to cover the costs of the EDI grant and loan that have made this acquisition possible. That includes the group represented by Dakota and Blake today being responsible for maintenance and property improvements on that location during the course of this lease, as I'm sure they would do anyway in good stewardship of the land. One more minor item, there is a residential unit on this property. I'm happy to point that out to anyone later, but that will be limited to 5 years unless agreed differently by the port. As this land is meant to be for agricultural research and experimentation, it wasn't meant to be housing development. If we could go to the next slide, please. Can I do that? Yeah. Here's a little bit of what's entailed in this property. And we have walked and visited it many times, as I'm sure many people in the audience have as well. Building 1, a simple storage office building, relatively small structure. The housing unit we just spoke of is building number 2 on this map. The shop is building number 4. The retail building, number 3, is where currently you would go in to buy flowers or fruit and vegetables that have been produced in the current family farm operation. Again, many of you are probably familiar with the organization from walking into that, or the property from walking into that building. And then the pump house, production building, and frame shop are other parts of the working operation. This is meant to be for agricultural, educational and programming, farm work development, academic programs, office and administrative uses, and commercial sales of some of the farming products. Adding a little bit of color to the presentation here. These are some of the various agricultural work we expect to have happen there. Berry farming, certainly, but also crop protection, other agricultural, dairy, potatoes, farming demonstrations, and of course the educational programs that we talked about. Often people have spoken about the bread labs in the county to the south of us, really driving innovation in the agricultural sector there. And I think with great credit to them, we're finding that our county should have the same level of drive around such a facility. And I have every confidence that this will be quite successful. We may not have pizza and beer, but we'll have potatoes and berries. So.
And I'm told we'll have ice cream.
I'm in for that. The acquisition timeline, purchase and sales agreement in April of 2025. The economic development investment agreement came in June 2025. The Department of Commerce grant was agreed and signed in June 2025. I will again shout out to Annika and Tyler, who worked very, very hard to get those particular items to close, even at some points where we had some doubts that all of the pieces were going to fit together. So, Annika, thank you. Tyler's on vacation, so we won't give him too much of a shout out. So. The WFFS lease to operate, that is the subject of this discussion. If I was really mean, I would read it to you. It's about a ½ inch thick, but it really does detail a lot of the operations governing this and shepherding through something that's a little more unusual than a simple lease of a shop or a warehouse space. This is available through clicking through the agenda. You're happy to read through it. I'll spare you from reading it right now. Due diligence process. That due diligence process is meant to end by August 1st, and I believe we are on track for that. There's a couple of things that have to come in sort of at the last minute. Some incorporations of the parties involved, but I believe we're on track for that August 1st due diligence process to end. And then again, October 1st would be the date when the acquisition would happen and the lease would commence. Yeah. Never let me drive the presentation. So do you have any questions at this time while I figure out how to get us back to the presentation?
Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Mr. Shepherd?
I don't have any additional questions. We've talked about it a couple times before. I just want to appreciate all the work that's gone on to it. We can see how many moving pieces there are to line up diverse funds and coordinate between state, county, and local entities. So good job for the team in pulling together a diverse set of funding to make this possible.
And I'm fine with the presentation ending here. You're good to stand down.
That's good, 'cause,
because we've seen this. My question is simple. We've seen these kind of operations, and no reflection on you, but if at some point it starts to go south in this 25-year period, what is our remedy? Do we seek new operators? Is there a provision for, do we have control over that, or will they be the leaseholders for the duration of that 25-year period? Is there a mutual separation agreement? We hope you succeed. I'm not doing that. Our job is to kind of to look at the worst case scenario, and there are a lot of nonprofits going out of business in similar spaces.
Commissioner, do you remember the part where I was complimenting Annika on all her hard work? This is where she pays by coming up to talk about the built-in safeguards. She knows best. So I'm going to ask her to come up and answer that question.
And while you're at it, just for clarification, we did get a grant from the, don't get old.
Department of Commerce?
No, the EDI fund. Who actually owns the property at the end of the day? And when the loans are paid off, in whose ownership will that property remain?
I know that, but I think Annika would be best to answer that question as well. I'll remind you this.
Oh, I look forward to this.
Annika Bjorkman, Senior Property Manager, Real Estate. There isn't specific language in the lease for safeguarding it. I don't know, I'm looking at Holly for legal. I'm assuming we would come together with some type of separation agreement and come back to the port for a termination agreement, is what I've done in the past.
Yeah, I'm just asking if it's mutual or,
Right. So we've got a specific use provision, as we do in all of the leases for the port. And so if the use was not something that the tenant was able to do, presumably they're not going to be able to, pay the rent either. And so I would imagine that what would happen is a mutual termination agreement. You don't usually get pushback from tenants who are looking to separate in that type of a circumstance. But we also have this agreement is, or this action item is approval of a lease agreement in the format substantially similar to the one before you. So if that is something that you would like to have more explicit in the agreement, we can go back and add that in.
yeah, I just want it to be used for what it's intended, for the full term. And we hope and pray that you guys are incredibly successful. But in the event that that doesn't happen, and 12 years from now, we don't have a tenant and there is no one paying, what is our plan B for that property going forward? And I think that's something we should have a plan for, or at least we should have figured out. Or if at the end of 25 years, they say, we're done, we've worked, my kids are out of college, I need to go home. What are we going to do with that particular piece of property? And that's why the ownership is.
Yeah, the port would own the property, and at the end of the term, we could decide to sell it to WFFS or look for a different tenant or entity. It would be up to the port.
That's all I've got. Any other questions?
Yep.
Welcome to the family. Commissioner Briscoe? Oh, you better read it.
Motion to authorize the interim executive director to execute a new lease in substantially the same format as the attached proposed lease between the Port of Bellingham and Wacom Food and Farming Station for approximately 58.81 acres of land and improvements at 6209 Northwest Drive in Ferndale.
Commissioner Shepherd?
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Welcome to the family. All right, now the final
Thank you,
portion of our business. Commissioner Briscoe, Commissioner Shepherd, are you okay if we waive the last public comment period, or would you like to have that? Oh, wait.
I think we
No,
have
we
someone
should
in
add it.
attendance.
Some homeless guy walked in.
Yeah. I apologize. I just got off work And I suppose I'd missed the really interesting conversation about 5 commissioners, but.
My name is Doug Carlberg.
Oh, I apologize. My name is Doug Carlberg. I live here in Bellingham. So when I started paying attention to the port, one, I couldn't sit at this microphone at 6:30 in the evening. Now we have it on TV, we make room for public comment, and we make our deliberations in this room. That was not the case at one point with the port commissioners, which is none of your fault. You guys have done, as far as I'm concerned, a pretty darn good job, one of the best I've seen in my lifetime. But I think you need to rethink this 5 commissioners thing, because I was just reading Washington Port's website, and the purpose of an open meeting act is to retain public trust. And the stated purpose is every deliberation happens in this room with the public invited. When you go to 5, you will find 2 commissioners deliberating with each other outside this room. And if you Google violations of Washington Public Meetings Act, you will find thousands of examples of that exact thing happening. 2 commissioners can go meet with the Republican Party and 2 commissioners can go meet with the Democratic Party, and we're not there. I like the deliberations in this room. I know that's inconvenient for you at times, and I'm sympathetic to that, but the public's trust is the precious thing you hold in your hand. It's not your convenience, much as I do care, because sometimes it's cumbersome in public life to go through that process. But I want all deliberations in this room, and if you go outside this room as it sits today, and you 2 guys meet, that would be a violation. I like it that way. And I think a lot of the public likes it that way because they want to trust their government. But the government has given them reasons at times to not trust them. They have earned today in America, the trust in government has never been lower in my lifetime, and I think that's important. Now, the question that's interesting is you guys have sat there for 8 years. What difference would 5 commissioners have made? And at what cost to the public? What would the public get as a benefit for the additional wages and salaries? And you know as well as I do that when you make a bigger committee, it slows it down. It just does. And I can't think of a single thing that you guys have made a decision on that would have been measurably better with 5 commissioners. And it really just boils down to that, at significant cost. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask the public what they think, but too often in this room, we don't ask the public. We listen to 3 or 4 loudmouths at a microphone like myself. That's not the public, and we've had this discussion before. But when I walk around and talk to people, I don't get anybody, and they know I'm always involved in important stuff somehow. I don't get anybody come up and ask me, we really need 5 commissioners. So I don't know where it's coming from. But I don't think it's some kind of groundswell. I really don't. But that's just my opinion. And thank you for letting me speak this evening. That's it.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Anyone else wishing to speak before the commission? Anybody online have a final thought? Anybody in the room? Okay, other business. Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the staff and everybody who participated in making Northwest Tune-Up a success over the weekend. It was fantastic. It keeps growing as an event. And keeps getting better, in my opinion, in terms of the number of people who are showing up, the diversity, and just really the kind of level of presentation that our vendors and exhibitors are bringing. It was stepped up this year for sure. There were exhibit booths that had second floors. There were all sorts of amenities being delivered through those, and it was just quite impressive the level of kind of visibility our community is getting. And it's really telling when we see other communities here, like Kamloops, British Columbia. Kamloops was here at our event, encouraging people to come to Kamloops. that means that we are really having an event that they see as important enough that they're staffing somebody to drive all the way from Kamloops down to here to be at. We also had people from Stevens Bike Park as well, and so many major bike manufacturers and component providers. So I think it's achieving our goals of both bringing people together for a fun event and driving economic activity into our community through all the people who are attending and spending money here. And so it just continues for me to drive home the importance of that part of our waterfront that facilitates those public and community events, and having those available for the future so we're able to keep having great events like this.
Commissioner, thanks for bringing that up. I had asked just before the meeting Stephanie Wiley to give a brief little update about Northwest Tune-Up and the 4th of July. If it's okay at this time, I'll have her step up, or
yes,
you have more things.
I also just wanted to have Race Week mentioned as well. Could
Perfect.
that be possible addition?
Yep. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Stephanie Wiley, Community Outreach Manager. Yeah, happy to talk about all of the events that we have had in the last couple of weeks and those we have coming up. So we had the 4th of July 2 Fridays ago, the event put on by the Chamber of Commerce, the People's Bank 4th of July Spectacular. A good day out in Zwanich Point Park. As the port, we really kind of focused on safety and on our visitors' experience, especially the leaving of the park after the fireworks, because it's about 3,000 to 4,000 people all leaving at once. So really focusing on that, and it went very smoothly as it could with all of those people leaving at once. We were really happy with that. Saw really similar numbers for those attending the fireworks viewing. So that was fantastic. And then yes, Northwest Tune-Up this past weekend, I agree. I think it was a great year. It was the 4th year of that festival, and I believe that festival received one of the 5-year grants from the city, and they're just really fine-tuning their event every year. I thought it was a really great setup, a really good use of space. I think they saw a 30% increase in the number of mountain biking industry vendors that they had attending the festival this year, and I think you could really feel that increase. They've done a really good job of getting a lot of really great brands and companies to come out for that event, and they really increased the amount that was open to the public. So outside of that ticketed space, there was a lot for people to get to experience down on the waterfront. So I think they made it even more accessible in those terms. So it was a really great event, really always happy to work with that organization on that event. And then yes, next week coming up, we have Bellingham Race Week. So it's the first time in 40 years that this multi-day sailing race event will be happening out of Bellingham. It was on Whidbey Island for many years and then out of Anacortes for the past several years. And they kind of outgrew that harbor and are coming now to Bellingham. People will be able to see all of the races happening out on Bellingham Bay. There are 45 boats currently registered for those races, so it's going to be really exciting. People can come down to any of our waterfront parks and be able to view those events, and then they'll be hosting their daily award ceremonies in the Fisherman's Pavilion. So I've been working very closely with Aaron Bisson, the Squalicum Harbor Master, to get us all ready for that great event coming too. And thank you. Appreciate that. That's taken a ton of coordination, both for the port and with the Race Week coordinators, who have been good partners as well. So
It's great to hear. When that many boats come into the harbor, it's a lot of business for our local providers, suppliers, and repair companies. So
yeah,
great to see.
It's a shell game over there in the harbor, getting everybody in. So,
and I can't tell you what a great job you're doing. I cannot open a device and not have the Port of Bellingham somewhere in my feed, and usually early in my feed. The PR and the outreach that's happening in this port I'm proud. Thank you.
I do believe the social media team has done a good job over the last 6 months, now really humanizing the work we're doing here.
Yeah,
It's a great way to waste time. I'll open a feed and I've got the next 10 minutes scheduled because I'm watching your loops. So thank you.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe, any other business?
Yeah, just one thing. I'd like, I don't know how to tell the staff, the level of appreciation when we had a director leave as quickly as it was done, and have staff step up, keep the ball rolling, and Tiffany step into a position that's, I think she's finding out is really, really difficult at times. And just a big thank you to all of staff for keeping things going and keeping it together. And I believe that Director Fix left you with the insight to do that. He prepared everybody. So thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner.
That's all I have.
I'll piggyback on that and say that Director Fix chose some amazing people to hire, and that does not go unrecognized. So thank you, Commissioner Briscoe. That's all I've got. Meeting adjourned.